welcome to Move with Martin, where we break down the real side of real estate in Oklahoma. Today I'm sitting down with Brent Houston from UFFC Mortgage. We're going to be asking him a few questions about the mortgage industry. We're talking credit scores, down payments, rising rates, creative financing options, what buyers really need to know before diving in. Let's get into it, Brent.
Let's do it.
Let's kick things off with, how did you end up in the mortgage world?
Kind of a funny story, really just by chance. So I'm 36 now. Basically, throughout my whole 20s, I was in the restaurant business. Started it right from the bottom, doing dishes, and then kind of moved around the kitchen a little, moved to the front of the house, did some serving, probably did bartending for most of that spiel. Good, I'd say, solid 8 years worth of bartending. When that finally ran its course, I got into selling cars. So I was in the car business, did that for right at about a year and a half. And from there, I jumped right into the mortgage industry.
What's one myth about mortgages or lending that absolutely drives you crazy?
Probably the idea that buyers have that, there's basically no two buyers alike, and there's no one size fits all when it comes to home buying. So, until you really dive in and look at your own unique situation, you really don't know where you stand on things. So it's really important to work with, a reliable source that's really going to help you out and explore all of your options, because you do have several options. Like I said, no two buyers are alike. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that drives me crazy is, this home buyer feels like their home buying experience is going to be the exact same. And that's never, ever the case. So that's probably the biggest thing I would say.
Right. People hear pre-approval and pre-qualification. What's the actual difference?
That's a very, very good question. And both are very important steps in the home buying process, but there is a pretty big difference between the two, I should say. And I'll just kind of break it down in my own words. We'll start with the pre-qualification, because that's typically going to be your starting point anyway, is getting qualified for the loan. It typically starts with the application process. Maybe the lenders, had to look at your credit, get you an idea of what you might qualify for. And then they come back to you and say, hey, based on what I'm seeing, this is what you would qualify for. But at the end of the day, a pre-qualification is not a pre-approval. So you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself and think that just because you've been pre-qualified that you're ready to go. There's definitely more steps to be taken. But it's definitely a good starting point, to get you pre-qualification. Some buyers have gone under contract with pre-qualification letters, and that's a dangerous step to take, because there might be issues that you don't see up front. So after the pre-qualification step, it's your lender's job to follow up, take the necessary steps to get you to that pre-approval. So and the pre-approval is, it's where you want to be at. It strengthens your standpoint as a home buyer. It shows the sellers that you're serious about buying. You've already been through the proper steps. Unfortunately, there are some bad pre-approval letters out there. Lenders not doing their due diligence, and things tend to fall through, last second, as we've all have seen. We talked about it earlier before we, jumped on the call. Deals fall through even when a buyer's been pre-approved, but things happen. Sometimes it's out of control. Sometimes, though, it's just because the lender was not doing their due diligence up front and finding all the information that they need to find. So a pre-approval basically means that you've submitted all of your documentation, you've had your income verified, all that good stuff. And then when you're working with a lender like us, we like to say that when we cut you a pre-approval letter, it's going to be as good as money. Again, we like to do our due diligence, and we like to be confident when we hand you a pre-approval letter, because if you hand out a bad pre-approval letter, it upsets everybody involved. The home buyers, the real estate agents, the sellers of the home, title companies. So you don't want to have a bad pre-approval letter, and you don't want to go too far with the pre-qualification. Both important steps, definitely differences in between the two, though. So you want the pre-approval. The pre-qualification is a good starting point.
That's a good answer. Yeah, no, definitely buyers, give all your information when you're talking to these people.
Yes. Honesty and transparency is important.
might ask some prying questions, just answer them. How important is a credit score really? And what's a score that surprises people when it qualifies?
Well, obviously, credit's important when you're trying to take out any type of loan. It's obviously the elephant in the room too. When you mention credit, buyers start to cringe because in their mind, people have really messed up their credit or hurt their credit. But again, it's just the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Obviously, the higher your scores are, the better your options are going to be. But you don't necessarily have to have perfect credit to qualify for a home and get pre-approved. But again, it's just the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed early on. The more we know about it up front, the more we can help you and explore all your options. But don't just think because you have imperfect credit that you can't buy a home, become a homeowner, and get your dream home. It's definitely possible. And if the credit needs work, again, it's just something that needs to be addressed. And, once we've had a look at it, there's plenty of options and, steps that we can provide you with that you can take to strengthen your score and open up more options for yourself.
Right. So just getting in there and at least taking the starting steps, and you can make a game plan to get in there.
Yeah. I can't speak for all lenders out there, but if there are credit issues and that's addressed up front before we even look at the credit, there's ways that we can help you, whether it be a soft pull or you just kind of explain to us what your situation is. But the credit report, you never know the full story until you see the full credit report. But even a soft pull is a good idea to start with, just to kind of get an idea of what's on there. And maybe, we can give you some guidance based on that.
A lot of people think you still need a 20% down payment. Can we set the record straight on that one?
That's a funny one because, before I got in the mortgage business, I'll be honest, I didn't know nothing about, really the home buying process. I do own my home, but, again, that goes back to the story that no two home buyers experience are ever going to be the same. So I wasn't aware of the $20 down payment coming into the mortgage industry. It was something I found out about after the fact, but it was never something that was a big deal because obviously you don't need 20% down to own a home. That's far from the truth. There's several other options out there for you. You have zero down payment loan programs, down payment assistance programs, and you can even put as little down as 3 to 3.5%. If you do have to have a down payment. So the 20% down is obviously a myth, but it's not a bad starting point either. I mean, if you've got 20% down, maybe that might be the best way for you to buy a home if you can, if you have those funds available to you. But, we're talking 20% down on I'll just throw some numbers out there, say a $200,000 home purchase, that's $40,000. And, what average American has $40,000 sitting in their bank account in, Oklahoma. So they're out there, but it's not ideal for everybody. So yeah, you don't need 20% down. That's a huge myth. If you have it, great. If not, let's explore your options and see what we can do to get you into a home with a lesser down payment or a no down payment.
Rates are higher than they were a few years ago. Should people be scared to be buying right now?
No, rates are what they are. It's out of our control. It's out of my control. It's out of real estate agents, out of their control. Home buyers don't control the rates. It's just something that we have absolutely zero control over. Everybody's fingers crossed that they're coming down, but you're right. About 5 years ago when, the pandemic was at the peak, home buyers saw interest rates probably lower than they've ever been. So they kind of got spoiled by that, and everybody's fingers crossed that they get back to that point. Honestly, they probably never will. If they do, awesome. We'll all be booming in the industry. But if we can just get them to dip a little bit, it'll be a better for everybody else. But they're not as bad as they've historically been. And, even on average, I'd say they're, at this point in time, they're kind of average over what they've been throughout, going back to the 80s and the 90s. It's just rates are what they are. So,
and if you need a home, you need a home. So those shouldn't concern you too much.
Right. And again, sometimes it just depends on the situation. Maybe it's ideal for you to go ahead and get in a home at a slightly higher rate. But for some people, it's not the best option. So again, it's all about who you're working with to make sure you know the full story.
So let's say someone does buy a home right now and the rates drop later. What are their options?
That's kind of our bread and butter. What we're saying to people right now, hey, like you said just a second ago, if you need a home, you need a home, and now's as good a time as any to buy, because it's all about securing that first property. If you're like an investor or somebody that's into flipping homes and things like that, if you're doing financing, of course, then it may not be ideal for you to buy at a higher rate, especially if you're refinancing. If you got a low rate, you don't want to refinance and get a higher rate unless your situation calls for it. Maybe you need that cash on a cash out refi, but you have options. There's always going to be options for you. And if you can save, on the rate down the road, it's my job as your lender to reach back out to you, knowing that we locked a slightly higher rate. I look at rates every day. If they go down over time, you do have the option to refinance to get that lower rate. And if it's worth it, then I'm probably going to be calling you before you're calling me, because I know that we've closed on a deal prior to. And if I can save you on that rate, it would be worth it for you to refinance.
Can you break down how just a 1% interest rate change affects a monthly payment?
Yeah, that's good question. When you're looking at it on paper, if you're comparing payments to payment, a 1%'s really not a huge difference on the monthly payment. Obviously, anything that you can save is going to be huge. Plus, if you're talking about the life of the loan, which is typically a 30-year term, from month to month to month, that slightly different payment is going to add up over time. But just looking at it on paper, if it's short term, locking in at a slightly higher rates for just a few years or a year or two, it's not a big difference on the monthly payment. But definitely, if you're looking for life of the loan, spending the full 30-year term, you want to get the absolute lowest payment that you can get. And I understand that, but it's hard to look into later on today, more or less years down the road. So
right,
nobody can see that far.
Yeah, you just never know what's going to happen. That's why you got to focus on the lifestyle change of owning the home and not the interest rates or the price tag. I mean, within reason, but.
And unfortunately, everybody talks about rates going down. It could be the complete opposite. Rates could go up. So you might be buying now and get the lower rate compared to what they might be down the road. Hopefully that's not the case, but it's a possibility.
Can you tell me about a time you had to get creative to help someone close?
That's probably one of my favorite things about what I do. Again, no two home buyers are ever going to be alike. So I've had several scenarios getting creative and saving deals. Like I said, maybe a buyer has gone under contract on a bad pre-approval letter. Things weren't seen or caught up front, and they're scrambling around last minute trying to meet this closing date. We've saved several loans that come to us and say, hey, what are you seeing that this other lender wasn't seeing? And unfortunately, there's times where we can't save the deal, but we can at least get to the bottom of the story and say, hey, this is why your deal fell through last minute. And that's really nice too, because I've had buyers that realize that even though they couldn't move forward at the time, let's get your situation handled. And down the road, they come back and see me. I'm actually working with a guy right now. So his deal fell through on his closing date. Because the lender didn't catch something, and we looked into it, we figured it out, told him why, and here we are about 6 months later, and he's ready to go, working on his approval as we speak. I've helped buyers with subpar credit, strengthen their credit, open up more options for themselves. There's many things that we can do to get creative to help save a deal or just help you get approved. So we just have to know what your situation is. And again, that goes back to being honest and transparent up front throughout the whole process, not just me to you, but for the buyer to me. We need complete honesty and transparency on your finances and everything.
People want to look at our industries like they're more in the car sales business, but we're really a service industry, both of us here.
100%. That's what I love about it, is really helping people, truly helping people out. That's the biggest joy that I get from my job. I love helping people. I always wanted to be in a position to do that. And I've been in, now coming from the car business to the mortgage business, I've helped people with two of the biggest purchases they'll probably ever make in their lifetime, a car and a home.
Are there any local or lesser known loan programs people should be looking into?
They're out there, yes. It's so much that I hate to overtalk myself and go through everything, but there's plenty of options out there for you as a home buyer. The best way to get an idea what those may be, and again, I can name a few, zero down payment, down payment assistance. If you're tribal, which we live in a huge the Cherokee reservation, there's tribal funds available, not just for Cherokees either, though. I mean, other tribes have plenty of, assistance programs that they have to help their members or their citizens get into homes, home buyer programs and things like that. You can go through to get that down payment and closing costs and stuff like that. But there's definitely plenty of programs for people to get into a home, alleviate that down payment and those closing costs for you.
What's one step buyers should take before they start scrolling Zillow that most people skip?
I'm going to just kind of go to myself here. Unless you're buying a home with cash and you don't need any financing, your first step should be to reach out to a mortgage lender. Hopefully me. I want to help you out anywhere. If you're in Oklahoma and you see this and you're trying to buy a home, just reach out to me and let's get it done. That should be your first step. And again, it goes back to, the buyers reaching out to a real estate agent. One of the first questions a real estate agent's going to ask is, how are we purchasing this home? Is it going to be a cash deal or are you going to be financing the home? And, a lot higher percentage of buyers need financing, so they need to go get pre-approved. So that's where I come in as a lender. I do the pre-approval for you, and then I send you back to the agent ready to go. So that should be your first step. Unless you're buying with cash, reach out to a trusted lender that can get you a good solid approval and go over your options with you.
Yeah, really let you know where you should be looking. Because if you reach out to me first, we don't know where we're looking.
Right. And buyers make the mistake too. They want to max out their pre-approval. You got to think about your everyday life. You still got to be able to live, pay for gas to get back and forth to work, feed your family, have a little bit of fun. So maxing out your pre-approval may not be the best option for you. You still want to live within your budget.
Err on the side of caution, always.
Always.
If you could give one piece of advice to a first-time buyer who's nervous, what would it be?
Goes back again to me. Hey, just give me a call and reach out to me. I put all that stress and fear to ease. I want your home buying experience to be fun, simple, smooth. I want you to have a great experience from the very beginning of the process until we get to the closing table. So just reach out to me and let's go over all your options. Let's get you into your dream home and let's make it happen. That way it can be a good experience. You don't want a bad home buying experience. Trust me. I hear those horror stories all the time.
Yeah, I haven't even gotten all the way through the closing with some of these, and it's not fun.
A lot goes into it. So, let me fight the fires for you to enjoy your experience. I'll do all the hard work.
In your opinion, what's the biggest difference between working with someone like you versus an online mortgage company?
Just really, again, I don't want to sound arrogant or a fool of myself, but you don't get me when you're buying a home and you're using me as a lender. I'm going to treat you just like family. I'll be honest and transparent. Sometimes honesty is the hardest part about my job because you do got to be honest with these people as they're going through the process. Sometimes it can happen, sometimes it can't right away, but you need, that just being honest and transparent with them so they understand their situation of why it's working or why it's not working. And I just enjoy meeting new people and helping people. So you don't get the me experience whenever you work with a bigger company online or something like that. It's not as personal, I wouldn't say, because they're not local to the area. They might be a nationwide company, so they don't have any ties to you or to your community. Things don't work out, they don't ever think about you again. Me, on the other hand, I get connected with my customer or my clients, I should say. And like I said, just making it personal and building relationships. It's a small community that we live in. Everybody knows everybody. So I don't want my name being tarnished or bashed out there. So it's all about, good business. You get, good business when you work with me. I'd rather do good business or no business at all.
That's the way to be right there, for sure. You don't want to run into someone mad at you at Walmart. For sure.
Right. I mean, typically a buyer, somebody that's had a terrible experience, they're quick to leave you a bad review. So far at this point in my career, I don't think you can really find anything bad about somebody that's bought a home with me. If it works out, it works out. Great. If not, we still shake hands and we're friends at the end of the day. So.
Exactly. And like you said, honesty and transparency. I mean, that's what you have to have in all this business here.
Yes. A lot of people are involved, and if you upset one person, it just kind of starts domino affecting its way down to you.
If someone wants to ask questions or see what they qualify for, what's the best way to reach you?
Well, if you know my name at least, Brent Houston, that's a good starting point, man. I'm everywhere. I'm easy to look up. You can Google me. I'm on every social media platform that I can think of, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X. I'm constantly trying to, market material out there, put educational content for my buyers. I like to share, when I have closings, just, for that good experience from people. But yeah, just looking me up. I've always got my phone with me as well. It's a big part of our business. Thankfully, we're at that point in the times where we're in the mortgage industry and we have a cell phone that can do everything for us. But that's obviously the best way to reach out to me is a cell phone contact. But there's plenty of ways to get in contact with me through social media, just looking me up online. I'm not hard to find at all.
Awesome. Good thing it's easy. Yeah, I mean, Google's made everything easier for everyone. Just getting your name out there now. Well, Brent, thanks for breaking it all down and playing in English. It's easy for people to get overwhelmed in this process, and I think this will help a lot of people here.
Well, I hope it does. And again, hopefully, if you're in the market for a home, no matter the time frame, whether it's you're looking right now, you're putting a plan in place for later this year, within the next year or two, there's never too early of a time to reach out and have a conversation with me. You want to be well prepared as you go throughout the home buying process. That way, it is smooth, simple, and fun experience for you. So just reach out to me anytime you're ready to make it happen. I'll treat you just like family. You're going to get that honesty and transparency up front, and we'll have some laughs and some fun along the way.